We welcome you guys and girls to this broadcast as we get set and ready to go racing today. Well, what's on our schedule, I hear you ask? We've only got the one race from this 1945 GMT, that's Greenwich Mean Time, or Universal Coordinated Time slot, UTC, and we can see in just under 4 minutes' time, we head into the grid for our one and only 12-lap race. And who's going to come away the king of the flat six machines over the Australian mountain? Well, we're going to find out. But before we head into the remaining parts of the qualifying session that's currently ongoing, a quick reminder of the schedule so far and what we've still got lying in wait. Well, as we can see, we are now towards the end of the first half of the 2025 Season 3 schedule. Last time out, in week number 5, it was the Okayama International Circuit. But now we're here at the Mount Panorama Circuit on this Saturday, the 26th of July. This top split broadcast will be brought from the Saturday slot due to scheduling requirements, but it does mean as a result we're returning to normal service on Wednesdays as of next week, all the way through to the end of the season. With a different day, it means we may see some new faces, and with some new blood being injected into the mix, we can always expect plenty of brilliant racing action. And after today, of course, in week 7, we head to the Netherlands to the circuit Zandvoort. But talking about our circuit then that's playing host, where it's none other than the circuit located near the city of Bathurst in the state of New South Wales in Australia. 23 corners, many of them household names, not just in the country but around the world, and all the way through it. Well, fake it to iRacing.com, not just for their simulator but the brilliant track mats that come with it. But this is a circuit you can't quite objectify in a two-dimensional image for the simple reason that the elevation change, 174 metres in total from the lowest point on the start finish straight all the way to the highest point at Skyline at turn number 11, it has to be seen to be believed. But coming on to our rules before we go racing, we can't go racing without them. This is an open setup series where our drivers come prepared with their own setups to go racing. Race-wise, the grid shall be set via a closed qualified session, and after which we'll be heading to the grid and the race shall commence via a standing start. Now, drivers shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points, gets 25, and they'll be disqualified from the race. But hopefully we won't see that. But what we will definitely see as we turn to our racing circuit right now is some drivers out there looking to put in some absolutely staggering sharp laps, and here's one of our many drivers out there. Philip Hammer, a regular in these top split races, and we look forward to what he can do today, given the fact that he needs to find a way to bounce back after a miserable time at Okayama last time out. Didn't even make his way to the opening corner without ended up sideways, unfortunately. But it was completely out of his control, and he's going to try and get things back into his control today because he has put on some absolutely brilliant performances earlier on in the season, including his win in the Week 3 top split broadcast, where his consistency was the difference up the front of the field. And in week number 4 at Tsukuba, his fight for second, where it was all about the battle between Bryn Collins and Adam Kotarski, until Kotarski and Collins had a coming together, and Hammer was able to put himself between the two to the very end. But right now he's looking quite sharp out there in 3rd place, and we are going to briefly show you the I ratings of all the drivers out there in case you are curious as to their I ratings. Give us a brief moment, and we should be able to pop those up on screen, and there they are. In fact, I think we can get you the full details there. And also, let's point out that your strength of field for this week's top split broadcast is 3,966, so one of the highest out there. Indeed, we're just shy of 4K, but we're doing absolutely fantastic. We're not going to keep those ratings up there on screen for the entirety of today. We'll keep them up there on qualifying to give you an idea of the split of the drivers in the field. We do have a grand total of 25 drivers here in this top split, and plenty of new names. And well, one regular name and teammates Philip Hammer, none other than Felix Vetter there, as he roars his way on down in towards the Forest Elbow. But coming out, he's currently the 3rd fastest out there, as up into 2nd goes newcomer in the number 1, Gustavo Ariel, as he roars his way out there in the Red Bull livery machine. They're heading up their eyes then, and he's going to have one more lap available to him. He'll get it in just in time. Remember, there's 2 qualifying laps available to our drivers, plus an out lap, and they must do it within 8 minutes. If they don't, then we will take the best of their laps so far up to that point, and they will be gridded based on that. There's no overtime in qualifying. They've got to get the job done as soon as humanly possible there, or at least get it done within 2 laps. Now, if you are tuning in, you have access to the YouTube chat. Don't be shy. Feel free to say hi. We don't bite here in these official top split broadcast, the iRacing Porsche Cup by Conspit. The only biting you'll see will be the biting of carbon ceramic brakes, our Porsche 992 Cup machines. And I do believe on the way, as of the end of this year, or perhaps even going into next year, at least in the real life of motorsport, from what I gather, we do have the 992 Mark 1 spec machine coming from the German Porsche Mark, and we'll be interested to see where that makes its way onto the iRacing platform in due course. The upgraded variant of the Porsche 992 Cup car. It's being a GT3 machine, albeit minus the aerodynamic refinements that you see on the GT3 class car, and also minus anti-lock braking system, so ABS and traction control TCS, making it a real driver's driving car. But as everyone makes his way around, We also do have Ricardo Rye, and right now he's making his way on down the back straight, currently in 13th place in the number 8, and we does him so right now right in the mid-pack there, which is where he'd expect to be, given he's door number 8. He'd be a little bit above that normally, but I think he'll be feeling as though right now this is going to be the best he's going to get out of this session, unless he's able to just find a little bit more time. But as we do hide away the iRatings there of each our respective drivers, because we don't want to absolutely cloud up the entire of your screen with a lot of information or information overload, we're going to see Ricardo Rye make his way to the line, and what's it going to be here? Does he move up from 13th? He does, to 11th place down to 205.4. That's a nice lap. We've got a couple of drivers still out there on laps, including Christian Carlson. And what can Carlson do here? And he's been a regular in our top split races as of recent weeks. Last time out, of course, we did have 3 big names at the very top. Heidi Nomamasi took victory at Okayama by a sizable advantage over Adam Kotarski, and Tobias Olsen completed your top 3. None of the trio here today, as I understand it, and therefore we will be seeing a new name at the very top come at the end of the racing today. But as he roars his way across the sideline, Christian Carlson improves to a 205.4, but it's not enough to get him ahead of Rye, and therefore he'll be started in 12th place. And I believe that's all of our qualifying laps in the bag, because we do have Alonso Bazil, and will right now make his way up the hill. No more laps available. It's time to head to the grid, ladies and gentlemen, and see how they all start for our one and only race today. So as the drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up then for the Week 6 Top Split broadcast in the iRacing Porsche Cup by Conspit. And as we can see, it is none other than the number 1 car on pole position being piloted by Gustavo Ariel. From the Brazilian, it will then be the Spaniard of Aaron Lopez, who starts in 2nd place. On row number 2, we'll have the combination of Felix Werter and Philipp Hammer, the 2 pole promotion esports drivers side by side there from Germany. On row 3, we'll then have what is Rodrigo Zolowski ahead of Malcolm Alwitson, and then from the Swede, it does come to the Portuguese driver there of Pedro M. Ribeiro, and he'll be ahead on the 4th row of the grid of Alonso Bazil. We then have completed your top 10 Francisco Botana, and we'll be in the company of Gordon Haug. Then, starting on the best rest slot in 11th place on the 6th row of the grid, it's going to be Ricardo Rye ahead of Christian Carlson. Between the Brazilian and Norwegian, there was not much time between them at all. It was half a tenth at most, and then we come to the Bosnia and Herzegovina driver of none other than Jake Williams, who starts 13th. 14th on the grid, it's going to be Leon Vegel, and then we have on row number 8, it'll be the Brazilian driver there of Euclides Cordina, and he will be ahead of the South African driver of Ruin Ekstein. Then we have on row number 9, it's going to be Nicola Pascan ahead of Adam Klamvik, and then completing your top 20, Pietro Fittipaldi and Vinicius Namsuk. Then we have behind them on row number 11, where it's going to be Christian Varela, who starts in 11th. Well, not 11th, starts 21st on the 11th row of the grid, I should say, ahead of Carlos Ozes. And then we do have on the final full row of the grid, Ryan Stark and Cake Andre. And behind the Brazilian driver, we will have, last but not least, from GTO with VRT, no qualifying lap set. He's got to do it all from the back of the field. It'll be Marskin Kaczynski. Well, those are your 25 drivers. They're almost all in position. And indeed, we're just waiting for the last couple of stragglers to get into position. And we'll already the lights going on, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the week number 6 race. It's 1 red light, it's 2 red lights, it's 3 red lights, it's 4 red lights, it's 5 red lights. And it's lights out. Away we go here at the Bathurst circuit as Gustavo Ariel gets a good start. But look behind, it's already a push to the wall there for our starters at the 4th row of the grid. Into the opening corner they go, and as they do, right now Rodrigo Lazowski has a solid start as well. The number 10 driver keeping his position, but as they make the way up the hill, plenty of drives further behind already scrapping as the lead has now started to form a long line of cars. Now up the hill they rise here. Will we see any early moves? So those have been able to get a better launch in the toe. We're about to find out. There's going to be a quick peek from our drives further behind, but otherwise it looks so there. It's going to be Malcolm Ritz, who's under a little bit of pressure to hold behind Ribeiro. Ribeiro gives him a bit of love tap on the rear bumper, but it's not going to get Lorentzen out of control at all, and in towards the cutting they go. Further back, Jake Williams battling side by side there. That's with Gordon Haug. And Haug in the end slamming the door shut in his face and says, no you don't, I'm going to hold that place. And well, there's a change there. Gordon Haug dropping a place. Ricardo up a position, and in fact already breaking away there, already up into 10th place, an odd admission to charge off. So our top 10 now started to get the rest of the field here, and over the mountain they go for the first time. And now it's all going to be about using those cold tyres, getting them up to temperature and avoiding those walls. It sounds easy in principle, but it's far from it in reality. As Marcin Kaczynski meanwhile has already moved up to 22nd place, 3 places gained since the start of the race. A great start there for the Polish driver, and now heading over Skyline. It's all downhill from here in terms of the elevation change. Hopefully not how his race goes, albeit of course the commentator's curse can always apply. It gives and takes, as we see Carlos Oz is there. Well, he right now is sat in 24th place, having had a bit of a difficult start behind the 7-up machine of Ryan Stark. But from the driver in front of him, the Brazilian drivers around right now, definitely always pushing on as well. We've got plenty of Brazilian drivers on this grid today. Indeed, I think that's the most popular nationality we have here. Well, we do look to the very front of the field, and Gustavo Ariel right now roaring his way down towards what will be the chicane turns 21 and 22 as he makes his way into the braking zone here through the chase. Well, it's now going to be Aaron Lopez right behind him. And of course, Aaron Lopez being one of the highly decorated drivers on this grid and most highly decorated drivers in the iRacing sphere, as I understand it. And I believe may even have the highest I rating of anybody currently. We look a little bit further back, and that's changed places there as Malcolm Lauritsen now dropping it down to 10th place, and some connectivity issues by the looks of things. But from them to the front of the field, one lap's complete. We've got another 11 to go, and Gustavo Ariel leads ahead of Aaron Lopez in second. Felix Werter is in third. Philip Hammer is fourth. Rodrigo Lazowski in fifth. That's top five ahead of Pedro Ribeiro in sixth place, ahead of Alonso Bizel in seventh. Then we have Francisco Botana in eighth, ahead of Ricardo Ree in ninth. And then it's Malcolm Lauritsen in completing your top 10. But as they roar the way onwards then and in towards turn number 2 once again, will we see any change inside the top 10? I don't think so. But what we will see further back is a bit of a scramble here going on in the fight for 18th place. And that's going to be Ruben Epstein ahead of now Christian Carlsen. And right now the South African driver goes a little bit deep. And well, as they all make the way through the corner, they keep it together just about. As in the foreground there, that's Nicola Pascan going around the outside of Pedro Fittipaldi. And well, Vincidas Nemsk versus Marcin Gazinski. Meanwhile, they're still fighting each other as they make the way through the cutting. And right now the all-grey machine, the number 16 there of Nemsk, is trying to push onwards as much as he can. But Marcin Gazinski are right behind him. But over the crest and through they go into the triple left sequence here, turns 8, 9, and then eventually will be turn number 10 at McPhillamy Park. Well, nobody will want to park it there in the gravel because the gravel will take them away. But all these drivers right now just keeping each other honest. There's some fantastic fighting going on outside the top 15. Everyone just pushing each other along here as they romp and roar the way down. But as things come down the front of the field and further down, everyone's trying to make some progress. We did also have a bit of an issue with Adam Klamvik on the open lap. We have got some replays of the race start to present to you very shortly and how some places were made or lost between our drivers. But before that, everybody there just missed the exit barrier of Forest Elbow. You've got to get close to it, but get too close and well, you could have a bit of an instant. But the front of the field, you can see Gustavo Ariel still leading in the Red Bull number 1 machine, but Aaron Lopez right behind him and right now pushing him every step of the way as they come down towards Murray's Bend. Now through that left hand they go. Felix Werter meanwhile just watching behind, and in fourth place Philip Hammer falling away from the top 3. But we know he has a bit of a habit of doing this. He's normally Mr. Consistent, but the difference between Hammer and his rivals is normally if he gives himself a lap time to hit, which is a 204.9 based on that lap, he'll normally be hitting that lap for the entirety of the race, whereas other drivers sometimes fall slightly off the pace over the distance, and that's what normally brings him back into contention for the podium positions, if not the lead battle. But the lead battle here is still Ariel versus Lopez. Lopez looking around the outside this time as they head into turn number 2. Who's going to be the braver on the brakes? Well, it's going to be Ariel there who holds the inside line. We jump aboard with your race leader. He's looking comfortable at the moment, and well, as he fights for the steering wheel there coming out of turn number 2, we look back for the rear of the lead car right now, and you can see there just how close it is as they make their way through that left-hander. In fact, so much so if Lopez was any closer, I think he would make tap and he would go around, but not to be as they make their way through 5, 6 and over the rise of 7. Completely blind apex there at turn number 7. You're essentially trying to climb a crest, and now down they go for a brief amount, a brief graze of the wall there. That's how hard they're in the push right now. Ooh, goodness me, a big hit to the barrier there for Lopez, but flush, so it won't do any damage to the car. It'll just be paintwork. And as they make their way through Skyline, well, right now, Ariel Lopez and Werter, they are all pushing each other to the absolute limit. As you can see, Lopez getting closer and closer as they go for the dipper, but too close, and he's going to make contact again, but not so. He's absolutely judging this to perfection right now as Lopez in terms of how close he can get. But these three definitely gap the rest of the field, and right now the question is, will any of the three drop off of each other, or will they not? Well, on lap number 3, there's no signs of anybody fading away right now, but speaking of fading away, we need to fade away to a replay of the race start. So we take a look back at the race start then. Well, the green flag went, and as it did, Gustavo Ariel did have an absolutely brilliant start here, as we will see as he launched his way off the line. The front of the field not really having too much of an exchange. Further back, meanwhile, as the number 7 there had to go quite defensive. That was Malcolm Lauritsen. Well, he went quite firm towards the barrier to cover his position. Ricardo Ree, meanwhile, immediately making up places as quickly as that. And then it was all battles further on up the rise. But what happened afterwards, I hear you ask? Well, this was none other than Run Extin, as the South African driver had a bit of a moment as he was battling there, and well, a bit of an elbow there, pushed these two side by side. In fact, that's the 20 and 21, and that was Extin being elbowed out wide eventually there, and that was in his battle with, I believe, Nicolas Pascan. And oh, goodness me, Adam Klamvik ending up to the barrier there. How did that happen on the open lap? Well, this was Klamvik in the number 15, taking a bit of a rallycross line there coming out of the chase, and then, well, everyone having to part their way around, and I think this is where the whole field scattered. Oh, goodness me, the 22 there making contact with him, and that was Pietro Fittipaldi having a bit of a moment there, I think, of blindness, not recognising that his fellow driver was there as he had to take emergency action. Now, we had this happen on lap number 3. This was to Leon Vegel, and Vegel coming down in towards the chase and having a bit of a moment here, I believe, in the wonderful blue and white car. Well, there was an instant in front of him and will carry too much speed behind the number 14 and had to, in the end, use a bit of the off-road in order to make an overtake on Gordon Haug, and that's how he made the place. And this has only just happened on lap number 4 to Malcolm Lauritsen, and Lauritsen coming down towards Murray's Bend. He's in the foreground here, camera shot. Goes for a left-hander. Does he carry a bit too much speed on quarter exit? No, he doesn't. We just briefly lose him from the race, and then he rematerialises. So I'm not quite sure what happened there to Malcolm Lauritsen, but he was still racing as we left him. So therefore, I think that might be just a glitch on our replay control system. How we come back to your live racing action. That was a quick recap of some of the big battles that start the race, and we come immediately back to 2 wide, further down the order, all the way through Skyline in towards the Dipper, and that was Martin Gazinski getting ahead of Nicolas Pascan. Now that is brave for Gazinski, but to be fair, we do know that he enjoys starting from the back of the field. He enjoys trying to pick his way past other drivers and does a fantastic job there, does Gazinski. That is incredibly brave. You don't go 2 wide normally over Skyline unless the driver in front of you has had a nightmare moment, and even so, that requires commitment and trust. And well, clearly Gazinski has plenty of trust in Pascan, and was a roar the way and down the Conrad straight in towards the chase. Will we see Carlos Oz's look for an opportunity here? He's very close behind Vincidius announced, and as they roar the way for the right-hander there, it's going to be side-by-side towards the braking zone. And, well, he's going to look around the outside. Can he make it happen? No, he can't. And now to get it there, just absolutely holds the door firmly in his face and says, you're going to have to find a bit more of an inventive way past me because I'm not letting you in this time. So coming down towards the final corner on this lap, they stay as they were, but looking from them back towards your leaders, or Gustavo Ariel. Last time, of course, had to go defensive with the inside here in turn number 2. He's going to do it again this time as they make their way through Mountain Bend, and Aaron Lopez continues to just absolutely chisel away at the rear bumper of the race leader and try to find a way in. But can he find a way in at the moment? The answer is no, he can't, as they make the way up the hill. But right on the way out of the cutting, we look on board here. We're riding on board with the number 5 car running in second place. The brushes with the wall there, literally, if they go any further over in terms of inches and millimetres, well, their race would be in absolute arrears. But Aaron Lopez right now, we see using all the curb, using every little bit of the circuit, and that's why they're in the top split, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, goodness me, as Lopez there mounts the exit curb out of Philly Park, uses a bit too much of the circuit there, and then some, and well, keeps it together just about as they come down the hill through the Dipper, and right now Aaron Lopez falling backwards there, and well, Felix Werter had to back off a little bit as well to avoid further contact, but that goes to show you one small mistake here, and it can end very quickly, and that is a tiny mistake on the relative scale. If we're talking about minor mistakes and major mistakes, that is a tiny mistake, and that's how close it was to ending Aaron Lopez's race over the course of the Skyline run. But down the Conrad straight they come. You can see there Ariel trying to break the toe a little bit from Lopez, and Felix Werter getting closer. How it does seem as though Werter might be running a little bit more downforce on the car by comparison, because he's not really gaining in the toe. He might have gone for stability here, or he might be backing off and essentially trying to say to Aaron in front of him, look, I don't want to fight you, just keep chasing Gustavo down. I want us to be all together, and then I'm going to look to do so towards the end of the race. Now, Lopez will be very wary of that. Of course, he'll be aware of the fact that normally amongst his rivals here in these top splits, they do normally try to work together to keep the race nice and close. Meanwhile, speaking of not working together, that's another placement gained there by Martin Gazinski as he overtakes Pietro Fittipaldi, down Conrad and in towards the chase, and now up into 15th place is Gazinski, the man who started from the very back of the field. He's up 10 places, and he's halfway through the race. Can he gain another 10 before all is said and done? Well, he's got some sizable gaps to overhaul, but never say never. Now we look towards the bottom end of the top 10. In fact, we look to the battle for 12th place here, and this is Jake Williams in the number 12 ahead of Ricardo Rey and Euclides Codina, and we're all up the hill they go, but Williams having a very poor run there coming out of the opening corner, or hell corner as it's known, and heading up the rise now as he does through the mountain straight. Well, where's it going to go here? Well, it's going to be too wide. Rio on the right of your picture, Williams on the left of your picture. Williams goes defensive. They give each other space to cooperate. And as they make the way through, oh, it's gone wrong for Ricardo Reed. The rear of the car lets go. Too much speed on the downshift and into the barrier. Now that car, oh, goodness me, and Pietro Fittipaldi taps him on the rear. That's going to do damage to Fittipaldi's car. And Reed's race is in the pits. He's had to tow to the pits there. And Fittipaldi as well. He's pulled over to the side of the road there. You can see very briefly that car is out of the race as well. Two drivers dropping out there. One mistake for one, and the other one coming into the scene of the incident. It carried too much speed, and in the end making contact. Despite the yellow flags, it wasn't quite sighted well enough there for Pietro Fittipaldi. And it's understandable he would have been pushing hard, and in the end, but he didn't recognise where the car was. Carried just at too much of a mile per hour, and in the end made that contact. And well, after that, it's all over. These cars, they are sensitive. When they pick big hits, they do not last long. And well, meanwhile, Vincilius announced he'll gain 2 places as a result of that, as will many drivers. And looking a bit further back, we're going to Adam Klamvik, the man who started in 18th place. Well, right now he's recovered a couple of places on his journey back to 18th. However, the number 15 driver who's in the trio here of Ryan Stark, himself and Craig Andre, he'll be hoping he can perhaps find a little bit more, because this race has not been very forthcoming as he hits a barrier there. Oh, goodness me, that is not a comfortable tap. That's definitely going to do some damage to the bodywork over the rear right quarter panel. The rear right suspension may be slightly misaligned as a result of that. He'll know going down the straight. If he feels the car starting to pull to the right or the left, even incrementally, he'll know that impact has not helped it at all. He may get away with it this time, but he does that any more times, I think that car is going to start to feel as though it's not pointing quite straight. And what does that do? Well, it means you have to start leaning on the steering wheel a little bit in order to keep the car going in a straight line, and that causes excess tyre wear. And because of the excess tyre wear or the additional friction, you're essentially pointing a wheel at a slight angle to get the car to go straight. You actually lose straight line speed, because you're essentially having a bigger contact patch of the tyre to keep the car going in a straight line compared to if the suspension was in perfect alignment. But as they make the way onwards towards turn number 1, and lap number 7 continues, and as it does so, well, right now Philip Hammer's under some pressure. We've been talking a lot about our top 3, but the man in 4th place right now, Hammer, is under some pressure from Pedro Ribeiro, and Ribeiro right behind him there as they make the way out of the turn 5-6 combination. Bit of a brush to the wall there for Ribeiro, but he'll get away with it that time. But through the left hander they come then. Turn number 8 in towards 9. Hammer's definitely feeling a bit of pressure. He's really having to go some now, and Ribeiro putting that pressure on him as much as humanly possible here as they roll the way around. I think Hammer was perhaps hoping he could protect the tyres a little bit more at this rate, given the fact the leaders are 3 seconds away from him. But it looks like Ribeiro there is now already up the ante and said to him, what have you got in the tank, Philip? Because I'm coming for that position now, whether you like it or not. And we'll have to see who is going to be the quicker one of them. So they make the way out of Forest Elbow. A good exit from both drivers, but Ribeiro there very close as we ride on board with your 5th place man in the number 4, trying to snag this place back. He's already gained 2 places since the start of the race. Remember, he qualified 7th. Hammer is where he started in 4th place, and Ribeiro's getting closer and closer and closer. He's going to look to the inside here into the chaser, is he not? He is going to take a peek here. Hammer squeezed the door. That was very close there. Ribeiro having to mount the apex curb with the front right tyre. If he'd come over any closer and hadn't backed out, I think it would have been a big moment there for Ribeiro. Hammer there played it very close in terms of what's legally permissible, but knowing exactly where to put the limits on, and Pedro Ribeiro there backing off. He would have respected the fact that he did have full a lot side-by-side alignment between himself and Hammer coming in towards the right-hander, so that's why he chose to back out, and Hammer knows how to play that game. All these drivers do, but any closer there, and Ribeiro, I think it could have been in tears. But right now, Philip Hammer showing his defensive nature very early on. He's had to reveal his hand because Ribeiro is looking very quick as they head on to lap number 8. But onwards they go, behind Rodrigo Lazowski, meanwhile in 6th place, is 2.7 seconds away, not able to get involved in this fight, and therefore Ribeiro's going to look to the inside. He looks one way, then the other, tries to send the dummy one way, then the other. And Hammer, meanwhile, just holds his line and simply says, okay, what you going to do? And right now, Pedro Ribeiro is starting to use every little potential move in the overtaking book. Well, as they come in towards the cutting, he's going to go up the inside there. Hammer runs a little bit deep. Ribeiro gets the door open, but now it's all the way around the outside. He can't quite get it there, but Hammer definitely out of position. And this fighting is costing them seconds a corner versus Felix Verta. In fact, that gap has gone up from 3.2 seconds coming out of Forest Elbow on the previous lap, already up to almost 5 seconds here. Such is the pace of the fighting with which they're going through. It's brilliant race and action between the two of them, but of course what it means is the top 3 are just gradually breaking away off into the distance. But right now, this is why the big battle's out on the circuit. We do also have a couple of scraps that are building further on down, including the last of your runners here down in 22nd place, Ruud Ekstein, the South African driver here chasing after Craig Andre Knight and Adam Klamvik still, and they're all hunted after the 7-up machine of Ryan Stark from America as he roars his way through turn number 8, and right now just trying to hold on for a little bit longer. Having started in 23rd place, I think he's going to be very happy with where he finishes right now, albeit Klamvik there is putting them under some pressure as they head over Skyline, but that pressure is not going to be enough. But meanwhile, back to the Hammer-Rivera battle, and Rivera this time on the outside as they come off Conrad into the chase. He's going to be on the inside here for the chicane. Hammer, I don't think he's got a response. Finds himself on the outside. There goes the cutback, but Pedro Ribeiro gets it done. It's a classic move, and in the end, the man who's running, I think, a special livery for Bathurst, because it's got the supercar logo on the side of it, was they roar the way down in towards the left-hander of turn number 23, with the Super Cheap logo, I should say, which is a native to Australia, if my memory serves me correctly. Pedro Ribeiro's got that place, but Hammer's now trying to come back at him in towards turn number 1. I don't think it's going to be possible there. He's too far back to look for it. Meanwhile, further back, Carlos Esses up the inside there, and Nicolas Pascan, he gains another place. He moves now up into 16th, making that move, and Pascan in the end having to settle for the difference of the two. And then we do come up to what is the battle for 11th place here. This is Gordon Haug versus Jake Williams. Williams there in the number 12 up the inside. Haug on the outside still. He'll have the better exit. He'll have plenty more space to get the hammer down, and as they roar the way onwards. In this battle side by side here, it's going to be a drag race, and who has got more rear wing versus the other, and who's just had the better gear shifts, where it's absolutely neck and neck between them. I think they're both running perhaps the same amount of rear wing. Who's going to be on the inside, where it is going to be none other than Haug on the inside here, as Williams tries to cut it all the way around the outside, but in the end on that wider circumference, even with the camber of the road, it goes the way of Gordon Haug there. Brilliant defensive driving for Gordon Haug, knowing where he can position himself and gets into that 11th place once again, and Jake Williams now has got to find an alternative approach if he wants to take that position. But brilliant scraps everywhere you look up and down this field of 25 drivers, ladies and gents. But we have had 3 retirees, sadly, and those have been Riccardo Rie, Pietro Fittipaldi and Christian Carlson. But those we've lost, well, we do feel sorry for, but those still racing, we absolutely adore in terms of all the action they're presenting to us right now as we move our way into the final quarter of the racing here today in Australia. But back to the front of the field, and well, things got a little bit quiet on the lead front with Gustavo Ariel right now, 6 tenths clear, being closed down, Conrad. However, the one thing he's got to keep in mind here is the fact Aaron Lopez and Felix Werter are now starting to get a little bit closer to each other, and we talked about earlier the fact that Werter was being very peaceful behind Lopez when Lopez did have his slight sideways moment coming out of Philemy Park a few laps ago, where the fact he essentially said to Lopez, no, I want you to catch back up to Gustavo, and that seems to have happened. But I think all 3 drivers are in a bit of an impasse here in terms of their all equal on pace. Nobody's really gaining or losing at the moment, and it's going to come down to the most minor of mistakes to see exactly who will be on the top step of this podium. You can see at 4.5 seconds behind, that is Pedro Ribeiro, who's now clear of Philip Hammer, is starting to gap him very incrementally. That last lap, for example, the gap that was put out was the best part of half a second, but we do have to account for the fact there was a bit of battling between the two of them, and also the fact that Hammer, I think, just settling into the dirty air now. But the point being here, Ribeiro is too far back to really get involved unless the leaders really start to scrap, and that will be in the mind of the leaders as well. They don't want to fight until the final lap, because otherwise they bring the 2 drivers of Ribeiro and Hammer into that lead battle before all is said and done. Meanwhile, in 8th place, where we look to the man who's at the back of the second pack, and he's in the Oreo machine, is Francisco Patana. And right now, we can see the number 25 driver, well, the lowest rated driver in this lobby. He's going to gain a huge amount of iRating come the end of this, as he roars his way up through the left hand of the cutting, because he heads up the rise here. He's absolutely on a mission. Started 9th, and on course to finish 8th at least right now. If he can gain a couple more places here, I think there's going to be the biggest grin in the world on his face after this one. He's absolutely enjoyed himself. But speaking of drivers that enjoy themselves, they go single file over the mountain. We also look to Marcin Gazinski, and he's got even more drivers to try and pick his way past us. We ride on board with the number 6 driver. Remember, he started last on this grid. He is up into 13th, and now he's all over the back of Jake Williams to try and take on 12th. And Gordon Haug, who battled with Williams only a lap ago, is only 6 tenths further up the road here. So Gazinski right now could finish 11th at the end of this one. There's a 3-second gap after Haug to Vegel in 10th place. I think that might be a bit too far for him to go. However, never say never, and you can't count anything out until we get to that checker flag and they cross it. But down they go, and Marcin Gazinski right now close. Can he think about potential move into Forest Elbow? I think that's going to be hopeful wishing, but what he can do is get a really good run as Williams down the inside line. Williams has a very poor run and stops the car in the apex. Gazinski in the end has to back off entirely because there wasn't any room to manoeuvre, and well, it's worked out for Williams there. The fact he made a mistake and Gazinski was too close to react to it. However, now Gazinski will know that Williams is not looking comfortable, and this is only going to help. Plus, Plus, Williams has now lost the majority of the toe off the back of Howell's car, so Kaczynski here will get a distant toe for both cars. He'll get a huge overspeed as he comes in towards the chase. He won't get it this time. However, what he will do is now have an open door opportunity over the final 2 laps. You can see how close he is. Only 2 tenths there as he exits turn 22. Down towards Murray's Bend they go, and Williams defends in the middle of the road. Initially, Kaczynski there thinks about it, but decides there's no point going for it. But he's definitely going to look for it coming out to Hill Corner at turn number 1 this time, I can assure you. But we're on the way up towards then the penultimate lap of racing here today. Well, they're close. Well, they close up here as Williams, again, under a lot of pressure, runs a bit deep. Williams making another error. Surely this has got to be Kaczynski's chance. But if anything, Kaczynski, in fact, I think backed off into the corner there. I think he may have just misanticipated his braking zone, and as a result has not gained. And Williams, in fact, has been able to open that gap back up to 4 tenths. It is closing now as they power the way along, but this is not going the way Kaczynski wanted. So therefore, a small error, and Williams has been able to hold this position, and Harold has actually moved 1.5 seconds clear of the pair of them as a result of the pace they're losing to each other. So this is going against the grain, but through in towards the cutting they come, and Williams there goes a bit deep. Kaczynski's going to think about the inside. He's not quite close enough. Now forced the outside there through turn number 5. He backs off immediately. He's eager to make this happen, but he's too far back, and he needs to just get closer. It sounds so easy, but it's far from it, as meanwhile a man who's going to go around the outside. That's Carlos Esses on Christian Varela, and we're all the way up the hill. 2-1 they come through turns 6 and 7. And Carlos Esses there makes another place. A lovely bit of driving up into 15th place. That's brave, but to be fair, Carlos absolutely demonstrated to us there how you can go too wide over the mountain. But through they go, and as they do, we've had a bit of drama for Ryan Stark a bit further down the order, but we've got to cut away from that because we come back to your leaders, and in just in time as Gustavo Ariel going absolutely defensive here, coming out of Conrad into the chase versus Aaron Lopez, and Felix Werter is only 2 tenths behind. Well, the gloves are off between our top 3, and I think this is where we're going to stay for the remainder of the race as we go on to a final lap. A small tap there. Lopez tapped by Ariel, and as Werter looks up the inside, well, he tries to go for it, but realises that's not going to work. White flag waves. 1 more lap to go, ladies and gentlemen. And will it be Ariel, Lopez, and Werter who's on the top step come the end of it? Well, coming out of turn number 1, who gets the better exit of the 3? They all absolutely snatch at the steering wheel there, all battling with oversteer and corner exit. And we ride on board with your 3rd place man, Felix Werter, as right now he's got the double toe. He's 7 tenths off the race leader. Lopez is only 3 tenths in front of him. It's a further 3 tenths now as they can start to come together to Ariel, and in towards the 2nd corner they come. And as they do, no driver here showing any signs of mistakes. They've absolutely managed this race to perfection, and now it really is all about the fine margins as they roar the way towards the cutting. Onto the brakes they come, and what's it going to be? And no difference between any of the 3. The margins are so marginal at this point as they roar the way over the mountain, and now this is where it's going to come down to who makes any mistakes. If a driver does, they could be back into this battle, or they could fall out of it as quickly as we can talk about it. Well, through turn 7, through 8 they go, and through 9, and right now Felix Werter close, but not quite close enough. Backing off a little bit there as he came through 9, in towards Philly at 10, helps him sight the corner a bit better. Lopez runs a bit wide, that's going to cost him some time. So Lopez there pushing a bit too hard as they come down through Skyline now and in towards the dipper. Ariel still holding on to this lead as they absolutely chuck these cars all the way around, and Lopez hits the wall. Lopez has a bit of contact with the wall, that's going to drop him even further back, and Ariel at this point with 9 tenths of a second advantage now. Surely that's got to be it for the lead. It means that it's going to be a battle for second if Werter can get a good exit here coming out of the Forest Elbow. Well, he's close, 3 tenths is the gap, but Lopez has a distant toe, and we believe that Werter might be running more rear wing. So right now he's going to be absolutely pushing himself forward in his chair in that car as they roar the way down Conrad. Well, Ariel's safe. Lopez now has got to worry about Werter behind. Werter's so close he could reach out and touch the rear wing, but instead he goes to the inside. Does he go for the move? He tries to, but Lopez beats him on the brakes, and Felix Werter has to settle back into 3rd place. And as they all come down right now, it's been a brilliant battle between the top 3 over the whole distance, but coming out of the final corner, it's only going to go one way, or is it? And it's going to go the way of Gustavo Ariel as he crosses the line, but behind there's drama, there's huge drama. It's Felix Werter and Pedro Ribeiro coming on through. Well, Werter's been in contact with Lopez. Pedro Ribeiro comes through to 3rd place. Aaron Lopez in 4th. Philip Hammer takes 5th place, and oh my good lord, it's all ended in drama. We're going to need to get a replay of that. Rodrigo Lizowski was 6th, head of Alonso Bizel in 7th, Francisco Patana in 8th, and Malcolm Lauritsen will come home very shortly to take 9th place, and then we'll have Lean Vegel rounded off your top 10 ahead of Best the Rest Man in 11th, Gordon Haug, with Marcin Kaczynski in 12th ahead of Jake Williams, followed by Euclides Codina, and then it will be, I believe, in fact, Codina under a bit of pressure, he's come through just now, and then it will be Christian Varela who completes your top 15 ahead of Carlos Orsiz and Nicola Pascan. Well, we've then got a couple more drives still to come, including Vincinius Nelms, who finishes there in 18th place, and it will be Adam Klamvik, who comes home in 19th. Then we will have Quake Andre in 20th. And, well, we've got 2 more drives still to make it to the checker flag. Give them a round of applause as well. It'll be Ryan Stark, who with some late drama in the end has had to settle for 21st. And it will then be, I believe, Ruin Exteen. And the South African driver here being the last of our finishers, taking 22nd place. But, goodness me, what exactly happened right at the end there? That's the question we want the answer to, ladies and gents, because there was drama right at the finish, and will Felix Werter and I believe Aaron Lopez coming into contact? Let's take a look back and find out. Now, this was the run in towards the final quarter. Our focus, of course, was on our race winner, Gustavo Ariel. And, well, Werter looking up the inside. Lopez left the door open. Well, Werter put himself there, and he would argue that Lopez turned into him. Meanwhile, Lopez would argue that Werter dived for it. Can we take another look back, potentially at an alternative angle? We may be able to here. Can we get on board with a driver? I don't think we can. We can get an alternative camera angle, and this was the lower view. And, well, I'm sure it's open to discussion, debate there. But Werter, I think, would argue he'd made the corner, and I think Lopez will feel the opposite way, but it'll be between those two, and of course, any stewarded action that comes after the race. But definitely a dramatic end. But Gustavo Ariel in the end enjoying a absolutely infamous victory here in Australia as we come back to your live screens and take a look at those race results. So after a brilliant 12 laps of racing here, down under in Australia today for week number 6 of the 2025 Season 3 Top Split broadcast campaign for the iRacing Porsche Cup by Conspit, we did see Gustavo Ariel take victory in the end by 6 seconds in a dramatic conclusion between the rivals behind him, but it was Ariel who led the way home. Felix Werter on the road, taking 2nd place there for Pole Promotion Esports, ahead of Pedro Ribeiro, who sifed his way through the drama at the final corner to take home 3rd place there, and the Portuguese driver will be absolutely ecstatic about that. It was then Aaron Lopez who took 4th. The Spanish driver won't be too pleased about how that's ended. He'll feel as though he was absolutely certainly on course for 2nd place. Philip Hammer finished 5th there for Pole Promotion Esports. A bit of a quiet end to his race after being passed by Pedro Ribeiro. And we saw in 6th place Rodrigo Lazowski, a great drive there for the number 10 driver to fend off the charge of Alonso Bezel, with Francisco Botana, Malcolm Lauritsen and Lean Vegel rounding off your top 10. It was a further 2 seconds to Best of the Rest driver Gordon Haug, who finished in 11th place for Sim Racing Norway, ahead of GTO VRT's Marcin Kaczynski, who started 25th and fought his way all the way through to 12th place. Well done to him. Jake Williams put on an absolute stoic fight there to take 13th place, tried to hold on for 12th as long as possible, but it didn't quite work out, with Euclides Codina finishing 14th place there by the best part of none other than 8 seconds over Christian Varela, who rounded off your top 15. From the Spaniard, it was to his fellow countryman from Ezones Nortenos of Carlos Orsiz, with Nicola Pascan finishing in 17th place. And then we did see us further 7 seconds behind Ice Cold Racing, powered by Maxim Race's Adam Klamvik in 18th. And it was Quake Andre and Ryan Stark who rounded off your top 20. Outside the top 20, we did see some other finishers, including Ruin Exteen in 21st and Vincinius Nelms, who rounded off the finishing field in 22nd place. Behind the Brazilian, who had 2 fellow countrymen who unfortunately retired from the race, Ricardo Ree for Racing Esports and Pietro Fittipaldi, and we also did have the unfortunate retirement of Christian Carlson there. But 25 starters, and in the end, a grand total of 22 finishers, ladies and gentlemen, all of which on the lead lap, and in the end, it was none other than Gustavo Ariel who rounded off the top of the field and proved himself today here in Australia as the king of the mountain. Well, what an absolutely cracking race. No doubt about it, indeed. We may have moved away from our regular Wednesday slot to Saturday for the purposes of this broadcast, but it didn't disappoint, and we've got plenty more action to come in the weeks ahead as we now look ahead to the second half of the 2025 Season 3 campaign. But as we get ready to wrap up, of course, it's only fair that we do give a massive shout out to our title sponsor for this series, and that is Conspit. For those who are curious to know a little bit more about Conspit, well, we've got the video just for you. Let's find out a bit more about them. If you are looking to take your sim racing to the next level, then why not consider Conspit? As the pro driver's choice of sim racing hardware, Conspit offers one of the most comprehensive lines of hardware products to sim racers around the world. Whether you're in the market for wheelbases, steering wheels, pedals, peripherals, or rigs, Conspit's extensive experience in the motorsport industry means every one of their products is fine-tuned for success at the highest level. But do not just take our word for it. We're brand ambassadors including 2022 Grand Prix Macau GT Cup champion Luo Kaliu, 2022 Porsche Carrera Cup Asia champion Liu Ye, 2022 Chinese Touring Car Championship champion Rodolfo Avila, and 2023 GT World Challenge Asia GT3 AM Cup champions Climax Racing. You shall be in pole position for victory when you invest in Conspit's hardware. If you'd like to know more, be sure to head to conspit.com today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the story continues then, because we make our way in a week's time, or really only in a few days' time, I should say, from Australia to week number 7. And when we do, we're back to our regular Wednesday slot. And on Wednesday, the 30th of July, 2025, we're in the Netherlands at Circuit Zandvoort, where it's heavily banked corners and it's fast charging chicanes. It is a circuit which is going to be tight, it's going to be technical, but there's plenty of overtaking opportunities available for those who get it right. Come tune in on Wednesday to find out how the story of the season continues, as we'll bring you another Top Split broadcast live from circuit side. But until then, we have been the iRacing Porsche Cup by Conspit. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also as Brit the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to have a great rest of your weekend. Remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.